On the road again. So here I am traveling, and I got to thinking about the stresses of travel and what that can do to you as an individual, how that can affect the experience of your trip, and honestly, how it affects the people around you and in the vehicle with you. So, I'm Coach Eric. This is Sane Enough, and we're on a road trip together. What's interesting about traveling is that it has kind of a ideal feel to it, the mythology of the road trip. And while that's not uniquely American, it certainly is a big part of our mythos because the country is so large and we tend to travel a lot around it for different activities. And so, one of the things that I thought is interesting, I'm on my way back now from having visited my son, my oldest. He's in school down in North Carolina, which is about 8 hours from where I live. He plays ball down there, and I just brought him back and for the weekend to get in a doctor's appointment, and took him back down there. And one of his good buddies and roommates is Korean, who also has a home in Mexico. So growing up, he grew up in Korea for a while, grew up in Mexico for a while. Really nice kid, heck of a hitter. And they've had this discussion about traveling in the U.S. and how it's different than in his home country. And of course, anyone familiar with the geography of Korea versus the United States, there's, I don't know the exact math on it, but probably 50 or 55 Koreas within the continental U.S. because we're a collection of small countries we like to call states. And so I do a lot of road tripping around, whether it be for work or whether it be for my kids' activities. And I've learned some stress management things over the years that really help me make these trips less painful. So, what am I talking about? Well, first of all, you have to understand that there's a lot about road tripping that is out of your control. Whether you're flying and there's a delay, or you're driving and there's construction, or a backup, or a detour, there's a lot of things you can't control. And if you let those things you can't control eat at you, you're going to end up with just an absolutely awful experience. Now, I'm saying you don't have the right to be frustrated. You do. You absolutely have the right to be frustrated. So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't be mad. What I'm saying is don't let that dominate you. What you have to be able to do is be flexible with the trip as it's going and take it as it comes to you and not stress so hard on the projected deadline of arrival. Now, if you have a hard deadline where you have to be there, for example, we've got a trip to Florida coming up, and we know they've got to be at the field at 2 o'clock. Okay, well, I got to tell you, it's like a 16-hour drive. Being at the field at 2 p.m. means I can't leave the morning of if I'm going to drive. If I'm going to fly, I can, but I run the risk that the airline is going to delay and going to have a problem or going to lose bags. So what does that mean? Well, that means day before travel. That means going part way on the road, staying in a hotel. Yeah, it's an added expense, but it's a safety net and a precaution that allows that trip to not be so burdensome. So, what do I do in preparation? Well, you plan it out a little bit. Don't just jump in the car and go. If you are going to just jump in the car and go, be prepared to really take it as it comes. You're not going to be able to be upset because you didn't prepare. One of the hardest things, I think, for people to do is pack. There's a million problems with packing. Maybe you forgot something. Maybe the clothes you wanted to wear are dirty. Nothing is more frustrating than getting where you're going and not having something you need. So a lot of people way overpack. How do you combat all of these issues with packing? Well, first of all, don't wait till the morning of to pack. Don't pack an hour before you have to hit the road. One of the things I like to do is start my packing 2 or 3 or 4 days ahead of time, depending on my laundry schedule, when the things that I want to take with me are clean. Then I can pack those things and have them set aside so I don't accidentally wear what I need to take on the road with me. It also helps me to pack things that I don't normally wear. For example, a bathing suit. I'm not a big swimmer, but if the hotel's got a pool, or the Airbnb or the Verbo's got a pool, I better have it with me just in case. And if you're going to the coast, or going somewhere with a hot tub, or you're going to the mountains and there's a creek, you want to have the appropriate swimwear. So put that stuff in right off the bat. You don't need that in your daily life anyway. Then the night before I'm going to leave, or if I'm not leaving till the evening, the morning of, I pack everything else. I prefer to do it that night before, except for toiletries. And then I'm going to check it at least twice. Why am I going to check it twice? Because if I only check it once before I throw it in the car, I'm going to be questioning it the whole ride. Did I have everything? But if I give it that second check, that paranoid check, and for me, that happens in my garage. I've got a chest freezer out there. I like to stage my bags right around there and on there. So I throw my bag on the freezer, I go gather everything else up, and then I unzip it and look at it one more time to make sure I've got what I need. I go through my mental checklist, maybe even a physical checklist. I love Google this. Excuse my stumbles here. I love Google Keep for that. Go through, boom, 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 boom. Okay? Throw everything in the car, and we're on the road. I also like to have some idea of stops that I'm going to make if it's a road trip I'm familiar with. The trip back and forth to North Carolina, I've probably made 10 times. And I don't mean that sarcastically. Quite literally, we're nearing on double digits here. So I know my preferred stops. So I just kind of plan that out. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually set my GPS just to that stop. Why? Well, that's the next tip. Bite-sized pieces. When we talk about plans for projects, or we talk about plans for things you're doing at work, bite-sized pieces are important. Have smaller goals before the big goal. Okay, well, if I set the GPS to my final destination and it's 16 hours away, well, it's going to feel like forever to get there. But if I know that I have a preferred stop 2.5 hours away, I go ahead and set my GPS coordinates to that. Now, that doesn't mean not looking at the big picture. Before I set that GPS, I set the big one and make sure there aren't any big detours due to construction problems where it's going to send me a different route overall. Because if that's an issue, then I'll change my target. But if it's going to recommend my general route, I go ahead and set stop number 1 in the GPS. If you really like using multiple stop GPS setups, that's a cool way to do it too. Google Maps will let you do that. So you set your end destination, and then you go back and you set in your preferred stops. Either way you do it, you're giving yourself obtainable goals, that first rest stop, and stretch goals, that final stop, right? Also important in that is understanding flexibility. So let's say you're driving 2.5 hours to your first preferred stop. And an hour and a half in, you're hearing from the back, I need to go pee. All right, well, now you're looking at your clock and going, well, it's really another hour till I get where I really want to be. Can you hold it? And if the answer is no, then we stop.